Hello all you puzzle-loving cosmonauts, as always I am Cosmic, and today we're going to be reviewing Small Radio's Big Televisions, which is a puzzle game developed by Fireface Corporation and published by Adult Swim Games. Now the reason I took interest into this is because Adult Swim Games have produced a small number of really well made titles recently, and they've published all of them, including Headlander, which was made by Double Fine, which turned out to be a really great game, so I thought I'd give this little puzzle game a try. Now, while puzzle games aren't particularly my favourite genre, nor particularly something that I would go for in my spare time, the puzzle genre tends to produce a few small gems a year that are really worth investing your time in. So the question was, does Small Radio's Big Televisions become one of those gems, or is it just another letdown? Well, when I first looked at the game describes itself as exploring the inner workings of deserted factories in the search of data cassettes that contain boundless virtual worlds, and you're able to traverse and control different things, and you're able to explore these different worlds. And for me, that is a little misleading. So you play the game by interacting with the environment on these radio stations and TV broadcasting stations, and it's essentially a puzzle game where you have to unlock the various pathways, and to do so you have to go around, find these cassette tapes, play the cassette tapes, which then transport you into a completely different world depending on what the tape is. And sometimes you can find items to progress. Other times you might have to distort the cassette tape, which will then transform that virtual world into something completely different, and you'll be able to find the items that you need to progress there. And that's basically it. The problem I have with it is nothing particularly wrong with the game per se. It all works mechanically. It has a really nice art style and a really nice soundtrack, I have to say, and give it credit for that. The soundtrack is very commendable. The problem is there's no exploration. It talks about in the game description that you can explore these virtual worlds, but you actually can't. Every time you insert a cassette tape, it does transport you to another world. However, it is a small place where you can basically pan the camera. You can't actually explore anything. You just look around a particular scene, which is somewhat misleading in my opinion. There's no exploration to be had there. You're just looking at a particular scene and then seeing if there's any item there for you. Otherwise, you go back to the radio station and the deserted factories. There's no exploration involved there, and I was severely let down by that. On the plus side, the progression of puzzle mechanics is good. There is a difficulty increase as you play through the game, but it's nothing that hardcore puzzle players will enjoy because it all is fairly straightforward and it's very simple to pick up. The other letdown of the game is the fact that it's around 3 hours long. It is not long at all. It is something that you can buy, play through in less than a day, and put down and never return to. There's no real replayability with the game. There's no real longevity. And for me, as a puzzle game goes, there's just a lack of overall features that would keep puzzle games interesting. Because for me, for a puzzle game to remain interesting, it has to have more than just a really nice art style and a very distinctive soundtrack. It needs a pull, it needs a draw, it needs a reason for you to keep going through these puzzles, and often puzzles can be somewhat tedious. For me, there isn't that draw there. You know, the draw could be story, it could be mystery, it could be a certain something put into the game that leads you on and makes the game compelling. This one is not compelling in the slightest. It looks great, it sounds great, and it plays well. There's no technical problems in there, but there's just not enough for an immersive experience. You know, the game completely touts itself at, these virtual worlds. It's an immersive exploration experience, but it really isn't. It really is not at all. And for me, while they do have a 3D environment that you can pan the camera and look around at the nice scenery or whatever, it would have been no different if you had a 2D still of the environment. absolutely no different because you can't do anything. You can barely interact with the environment. There's a distinct lack of story and a lack of mystery, and it's just something that, for me, is a letdown on all fronts. By no means is the game bad, but the problem is when you create a short video game experience, it has to leave you with a distinct impression. The only distinct impression that Small Radios Big TVs leaves you is that of disappointment and sometimes a little bit of confusion as to what the point of this experience was. You don't come away with anything. You don't come away with some kind of really good impression of the game, something that like Inside gives you, where that is, a 6 to 8 hour short experience that really immerses you in the game world. This game does not have that, and that is ultimately to its detriment. For me, while there's nothing mechanically wrong with the game, the art style is nice and the soundtrack is lovely, for me, I do not recommend that anyone go and pick it up unless you are a die-hard fan of puzzle games and you must play them all. Otherwise, I would leave it or at least pick it up in a sale once it's heavily reduced. And that is my review of Small Radios Big Televisions. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below, and as always, I will see you next time.